am the new generation of scary stories. It's time to retire the boring, emotionless voiceovers. With my voice and melody, you will experience the full spectrum of emotions. Subscribe if you like my videos, and also send me your scary stories to my email. And please indicate how you would like me to introduce you in the video. Good luck.
It was a late spring evening in our little town. A group of delinquents had gathered to drink a few and discuss what kind of stupidness we were going to commit that evening. Not really a group of tight friends, just whoever congregated outside the Dairy Queen. It was almost guaranteed that whatever we were going to do, it would probably involve some kind of laws being broken, usually nothing worthy of arrest. Usually, someone piped up and suggested that we go to the academy. Now we had all heard stories about the place, but none of us had actually been there, or even believed the stories about it being a gathering place for the occult when the academy closed for summer. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't feeling this one. There was some disagreement. Some thought it was abandoned, while others insisted this academy was still in use. And as the crowd grew, it seemed like there were too many people jumping in. There were a few people who decided to go that I barely knew. This should have been a huge red flag. Too many people and too many people that you don't know are usually a recipe for trouble. But what the heck? Let's do this. We're going to get there. Nothing is going to happen, and we'll be back in a couple hours. There were 3 or 4 loads of people in pickup trucks, but my small group would be going in a car. Not the best choice for this kind of trespassing. Along with me was my buddy, Jess. I had known him for a few years. Then there was Alex. I didn't know him all that well. He was a state wrestling champion from another high school, kind of to 30-pound goofball. Then there was Roy. He was a couple years older than the other 3 of us. My friend Lee had recently said that we were kind of jerks because we would just use Roy to buy us beer. I mean, I always assumed Roy had a life and wouldn't want to hang out with us. Well, unfortunately for him, he decided to that night. We arrived at the entrance of the academy. I expected a locked gate, but it was wide open. My car was kind of loud, so I parked about halfway down the quarter-mile-long entrance road. We walked with another group that had come in a car, but the trucks drove on in. I was a little surprised by the size of this place. We all ended up on the south side of the property. There was a little house that was a schoolroom. Nothing was locked. We just walked on in. The place looked like it was frozen in time, like something that hadn't been used in 20 years. This was the only building we entered. Now we may have been doing some illegal stuff, but we had no intention of vandalizing anything. That's another thing about doing this sort of stuff with people you don't really know. You have to keep an eye on them to make sure they understand that we're not there to break things. But so far, everyone was behaving. We walked out and headed up one of the paths toward another building. Another group went another way. Picture a couple small pickups and others walking with the trucks. I didn't like the idea of them driving in there like that in the first place. Vehicles tend to make way too much noise, but there were some girls who didn't want to walk. As we walked towards the second building, my thoughts were, I've seen enough. Let's go. These idiots in the trucks are going to get us in trouble. I told Roy and Alex we were going. Jess had split off and gone with the other group. As we walked on the path back towards the main entrance road, I see one of the trucks flying down towards us. They slide to a stop and tell us we need to go. They saw people through a window of a building on the north end. They were all wearing robes in a candlelit building, and they had been spotted. You know how people act when they are genuinely scared. They sped off, and the second truck came flying by yelling for us to get out. They didn't even bother to slow down. People in the backs of the trucks were nearly getting bounced out. After a moment of panic of what to do, we started running, but then we heard the voices coming towards us. At that point, they were far enough away that you couldn't make out what they saying. Then I could hear an ATV coming. We were cut off. We were in a wooded area about 400 feet long between two paths that merged together on both ends. The others had escaped out of a back way on the south end, but my car was parked off the side of the main entrance. It didn't matter. They were closing in too quickly. We lay down in the woods, not even 15 feet off one of the paths, hoping we can find a way out. I can hear two people walk right past us on the path and see the glow of a dim flashlight. They're not speaking. I don't even know what time it is, but probably about 10:30 p.m. on a moonless night. It's dark, so dark that you can't even see the other two laying right beside you. I figured if they went towards the back exit, maybe we had a chance to go towards the car. But then I thought, the cops are probably on their way. Then we hear the dogs. This is bad. Keep in mind, this is a time before cell phones. We are completely cut off unless we can get to the car. But what if they have already spotted the car? We're screwed. As the dogs get closer, I whisper to the others to cover themselves in leaves. The leaves were thick, plenty thick to hide completely. This is when Alex begins crying. The state wrestling champ, the one that should be most capable of handling himself. I'm telling the guy to just be quiet, but he just keeps whimpering about us going to jail. Then it's pretty clear they're not calling the police. They would have already been there if they had. They intend to deal with us on their own. I asked Alex if he wanted to die, because that's what will probably happen if they find us. We finally get him under control. We just lay, covered in leaves. Did I mention the ants? Minutes turn into an hour. Every time it seems they're gone. You hear them or the dogs again. Other than that, it's near dead silence. All of a sudden, I hear a car start and rev up a little. It's my car. I left the keys in it so I wouldn't lose them. They got my car, but then I hear it leaving, not coming towards us. Then I can hear it going through the gears on the highway. What the heck? Now I had no idea how we were going to get out. We had no car to get to now. The patrol didn't stop either. For a few minutes, a truck, an ATV, or people walking with the dogs. The dogs got so close. Once I thought one was going to step right on us. How they didn't find us, I don't know. At what I think was about 2 a.m., I think to myself, if the sun comes up, we're in trouble. The cover of darkness has been the only thing that has saved us. At best, we have 3, maybe 3.5 hours to get out of here. But how do you silently get 3 people out? The crunching of leaves alone would alert the dogs at least. Then I don't even know where the heck we really are in relation to the entrance and exit. This place is a lot of acres in a pretty secluded area. It's got to be at least a half mile either way we choose. And these people clearly think there's still someone on the property. A couple more hours rolls by. I consider running alone. I know Roy would follow. Alex would get caught. I couldn't do that to him. But I know it won't be long before the sky becomes lighter. A few minutes later, a light rain begins to fall. This is what we need. The rain will mask the sound of the leaves crunching. I whispered to Roy that it was time. He relayed the message to Alex. It felt good to finally stand up after hours. I looked carefully to make sure there was no one close by, at least for that moment. We'd have to walk the path towards south at least 1,000 feet before there was any more cover. We slowly step out on the path and start walking at a brisk pace. Alex wants to talk. We keep having to tell him to be quiet. About halfway down the path to next cover, I see headlights. Oh, man. We hit the deck in the grass beside the path. It's a small car. It turns away from us, then starts backing down the path. I was momentarily confused as it backed up at a high rate of speed. I recognized the taillights. It was Lee in his Honda CRX. I yelled, "Lee!" He popped the hatch open and yelled back, "Hurry, get in." The three of us sprinted down that path. I could hear the dogs again. Then headlights behind us. 3 full-size adults jumped in the hatch of a CRX, legs hanging out, as Lee sped out the back way. I couldn't believe it. It was so close to dawn. Once we were well clear of the academy, we got out of the car. I'm like, "How did you know? How did you find us?" He explained that he thought he had seen my car driving through town. Led. He turned around, got the car to stop. It was Jess. In my car. The guy had gotten out in the back of a truck, then come back and got my car. I was mad about that for a long time. He knew we hadn't gotten out, and just took off in the only way we had out. Of course, if he hadn't, the car might have been discovered. I still couldn't believe he just left us out there, and a chance encounter with Lee was all that saved us. For years this story got told. Every once in a while, even now, it gets brought up in conversation about the good old days. I never wanted to go near the place again, and I don't anyone who ever did. I don't know who the people were or what they were doing, but it completely fit the stories we had heard about the place. I don't think I've seen Roy or Alex since later that year. Jess died a few years ago. Lee and I became good friends for 15 years or so. Despite him moving away, it's been a couple years now, but every now and then we still get together. This night still comes up, 35 years later. The three of us were basically inseparable growing up, because of our ages being so close together and the fact that we were all girls under the same household. Old-fashioned favoring the boys who can do no wrong was a common experience for us. We were thick as thieves as a result of this, and we rarely went out without another when it came to going out to play. Our home was across from the elementary school we all attended, and sometimes we would play there when the school was closed. This was a time before schools were constantly locked up, but other times we would walk to the nearby park to play, since this was also a time where you could go almost anywhere unsupervised. And if you had a more neglectful family, especially so. The park wasn't too far from where we lived, so it was a quick walk for all of us, worth the time it took to be able to climb on the play set and enjoy the park's other recreational objects. I don't remember what we were talking about at the time, but we weren't far from the park when this person in a car pulled up to us. None of us had seen her before, so when she claimed to know our grandma, it threw us off. She said she lived not far from us and offered us a ride home, but in our guts, I think, we all realized something wasn't quite right. Despite not being the most socially aware kids, we refused. But despite the refusal, she kept insisting, saying that our grandma was worried about us, that she needed us home and all that. We continued to say no to her, and despite continuing to ask, we could hear the growing frustration in her voice. I don't remember too much from here, but the school was right behind us, as it was a fairly big school, with multiple sections and buildings spanning behind a metal fence. We all knew we needed to get away from her somehow, so we started keeping an eye out for something that would help put some distance between us and her. And what popped up? A gate to the school, practically indistinguishable from the fencing aside from the hinges and some metal chains used when they would actually lock it. And thankfully for us, this wasn't one of those times. We opened the gate as quickly as possible and ran inside. slamming it behind us in case she decided to give chase, and ran as fast as we could across school grounds. We only stopped when we were on the opposite side of school and hid in the school bathrooms as we waited patiently and fearfully to see if she had followed us. It felt like hours before we felt it was safe enough for us to come out, and yet it was probably 20 minutes at most. Eventually, we got up the berth to peek out of our stall, just to be sure she wasn't quietly waiting for us to show ourselves. And a huge wave of relief came over us as we saw the completely empty bathroom before us. Before long, we decided heading home was the best option for us. Since we didn't need that lady to show up again, we were a bit upset about not having gotten to play at the park like we planned. But that wasn't something some video games and snacks couldn't fix. I honestly wonder at the time if we had truly comprehended the situation we had been in. But as kids, I suppose we didn't think about it too much, never even telling our moms or anyone else in the family about our experience. I also only realized recently that she had offered us a ride home, and yet her car was going in the opposite direction of our house towards the park we were heading to. So she would have had to make a U-turn on a street where U-turns were illegal, and I doubt she would risk getting in trouble with the law just to get us home because our grandma was worried. Some details are a bit fuzzy, as I am an adult now and it was so long ago, but this memory has been in my head all these years, and despite the love of my life confirming this was not a normal experience, I can't help but feel like I truly misread the situation. Thank you for taking the time to read my post, and everyone have a good diaper night and stay safe. When I was 12 years old, my sister rented a home in southern Maine. I don't know if I believe in ghosts, but the things that happened in that house make it hard for me to say there is no such thing as a haunted house. It was called the Gould's house, after the family name of the people that built it, and I believe it was very old, probably around 150 years. Mine now. Lots of unsettling things happened in that house, but since I have a tendency to be long-winded, I will tell my scariest experience first. If you're interested, you can read on after that one is finished. The man at the top of the stairs. At the time this all took place, I was going to a private school that was far from my home with my mother and brother. The school was closer to where my mother worked and my sister's new home at the Goulds, so that I wouldn't be left home alone after school. My mother would take a break from work to pick me up and then drop me off at my sister's until she finished work and could take me all the way home. However, with that timing, my sister would often be out with her daughter, running errands. My mother would drop me off in the driveway, and I would head into the Goulds to wait for my sister and niece to get home. On the night it happened, it was snowing heavily, working its way towards a moderate blizzard. As usual, my mother picked me up from school and drove me to the Gould's house. My sister's car wasn't in the driveway, so I knew I would be there alone, not a prospect I was looking forward to since creepy things had already happened there. My mother didn't drive away until I had gotten through the front door. I was in the front hall, taking off my coat when for some reason, I decided to look up toward the top of the stairs that lead to the second floor. There was a man standing at the top of the stairs looking down at me. The house was mostly dark, but there was a nightlight in the bathroom behind him, which perfectly outlined his silhouette. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there. I felt very afraid, but I called out my sister's fiancé's name, as that would be the only ordinary explanation for who could be in the house. No answer. There was a moment, I don't know how long, where he and I just stood there looking at each other. I couldn't make out his face, but the physique looked masculine. He never said a word, but I could see his shoulders kind of rise, and with the sound of his breathing. I reached behind me, felt the doorknob, and that was it. I darted out of the house. I spent the next 15 or 20 minutes waiting at the edge of the driveway. I wanted to be far enough away that I had a head start to the neighbors if he came out. But I didn't want to go too far and miss the chance to warn my sister when she got home. It was miserable outside, but I remember thinking that it didn't bother me one bit, as long as I wasn't back in that doorway. When my sister got home, I told her what was happening, and we called the police from the neighbor's house. This was '96 and we didn't have a cell phone. The cops searched the house but found nobody. The thing is, I never took my eyes off the front of the house from the point I left until the police went in, and I never saw anyone leave. They could have gone out a window, true, but there were no footprints in the snow. From that point on, I wouldn't go back and insisted my mother let me wait in her car. After she picked me up from school, I would just wait for her to finish work. Other stories. Little girl in the window, before the man at the top of the stairs. I was babysitting my niece one night when something else happened. My niece was in living room, and I was doing dishes in the kitchen. There was a window above the kitchen sink, and if it was dark outside, you could look at the window and see your own reflection as well as the kitchen behind you. At one point, I saw a little girl walk behind me and into a small guest room beside the kitchen. Thinking it was my niece, I turned around and went to get her out of there. We usually kept that door closed because there was heavy exercise equipment and things you didn't want kids messing with, but I had left it open for some reason. I went in and flipped on the light, but she wasn't there. I called her name, and she came walking in from the living room asking me what I wanted. All of the hairs on my body must have stood straight up. I think we spent the rest of that night in the living room, but I kept my back against the wall. Other things happened. My sister fell down the stairs while holding my niece. She swears it felt like someone pushed her. I almost fell down those stairs myself. It was the strangest thing. I was on the top step and felt my whole body start to stretch, pulling me up onto my tiptoes and then pitching forward. I had to grab the railings to keep myself from going down head first. One morning, my niece asked my sister, "Who are the ladies who come into my room at night to clean?" She said there were women in black dresses with white hats that went around her room at night, putting toys in piles and folding clothes or blankets. I had strange dreams in that house. I could write a whole post about them, but even the very first time I visited that house, something unnerving happened. I was outside while my sister was giving my mother a tour. I remember I was playing with a new toy gun I had that I thought was the greatest thing ever. I was out in the driveway and all of a sudden, this terrible fear came over me out of nowhere. It was like the feeling of being watched but worse. I remember thinking, run right now, as fast as you can. I did. I ran so fast I tripped over my own feet and still got up to run more. I ran screaming out to my mother and sister. I told them what happened, but I think they just wrote it off as kids being kids. That place still scares me when I think of it.